Said my boy finna come to home.
If hell well come through here, that's the treatment. Hell no. If them other niggas come through here, I'm not even saying their name.
Now hold up. First things first, salute to NASA. Let's get that straight. That man is a certified spitter and a real legend in this culture. We talking DVBs, Skull Gang, Purple City. Listen to this, he wasn't just around. He was one of the main voices holding Purple City down. Him, Shice, Bubs, Aguilar. Yeah, Aguilar. That era was different. So let's not play with his name. He's legendary for what he contributed. And on top of that, he's solid people. I rock with Ancasa, for real. But here's where it gets interesting. He told that story, and technically he's not wrong. I'm not calling him a liar at all. I'm just saying there's layers he's not unpacking. And you won't hear him unpack them either. That's just not something he's gonna dive into publicly. He's telling the historical version of what went down between Max B and Juelz Santana at that mixtape spot. And trust me, that moment was real. I was outside when all that energy was brewing. I didn't like how the footage made it look like it just randomly popped off, because it didn't just happen.
If Jim come through here, that's the treatment.
You know what I'm saying?
Nigga said my boy come through here, that's the treatment.
Nigga said my boy.
I also caught another situation later tied to Jim Jones. This was 2008. Different energy, different politics. I was fresh off the Come Up DVD run with Fendi, and even though we were wrapping that chapter, I still had a few more installments dropping from footage I'd gathered during that era. I even handed Fendi some extra material, because listen, I respected our working relationship and wanted the brand to keep breathing. That's when the Yo Gotti DVD dropped. I think I also did a Rick Ross joint, and yeah, a Gucci Mane edition too. We were outside heavy. So boom, around this time, I'm moving with Juelz Santana. Me and Juelz built a tight rapport. We were flooding WorldStar with content. But behind the scenes, hold up. His relationship with Cameron was strained, and the public had no clue. On the surface, everything looked unified, but it wasn't. It was more obvious that Jim Jones and Cam weren't aligned, especially around the Ballin' era. And I remember that exact moment. Jim was shooting a video in a cathedral in Harlem when Cam went on radio and took shots at 50 Cent. That right there, that's when Dipset really started cracking, because the camp didn't want smoke with 50 at that time. Jim was riding high off Ballin' and wasn't trying to inherit that beef. Then you saw Jim and 50 together on Rap City's Basement, and that spoke volumes. That move basically said, I don't have an issue with 50, that's Cam's situation. Now hold up, that's a whole separate layer to this situation. But this is basically what split Dipset was rooted in. Juelz felt like he was boxed in under Cameron's contract and couldn't drop his album. That's what people believed. But listen to this, the real holdup wasn't Cam stopping anything, it was Jay-Z. He was running Def Jam at the time, and that's exactly where Juelz's deal was housed. So it wasn't about Cam blocking moves, there was bigger industry politics at play. And here's something else I started noticing back then. Juelz had developed a serious cough syrup habit. That's part of why I slowly distanced myself. That wave, it came straight from Lil Wayne. They were tight, real tight, before everything shifted. Juelz played a big role in helping Wayne gain traction up north. Wayne was already solid in the South, but breaking New York barriers back then, that wasn't easy. They toured heavy together, non-stop, and Juelz was getting to a bag, more than most New York rappers at that moment. Meanwhile, Wayne absorbed some of that Harlem swagger and got that cosign in the tri-state. That exchange mattered, because at that time, Dipset and G-Unit basically controlled New York, so tensions were rising. Juelz and Cam weren't aligned. Jim had his own friction with Cam too, and that's when you started seeing Juelz and Jim moving heavy. 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010. That's when Bird Gang Energy and VTO started bubbling. Cam was building the UN, meanwhile Juelz had Skull Gang, and the lines, they were quietly being drawn. Now listen to this, I told Juelz straight up, bro, you haven't dropped an album since '04 or '05, and we in '08 now. The last official project was What the Game's Been Missing, and after that, just talk about the Reagan era for years with no delivery. It started feeling like one of those V-block moments, no disrespect to J Hood, where the album gets promoted heavy but never actually sees daylight, and that wasn't even his fault. So when me and Juelz started locking in and shooting content, and he's like, yo, we building Skull Gang, I'm listening, but I'm thinking bigger picture. As we got closer, I told him, hold up, you're sitting on classics. I literally made a list of about 30 mixtape records and wrote full video treatments for every single one. I still got the composition notebook. Quick visuals, 4 videos a day, flood the market. He would have felt like he never left if he executed that plan, because it's hard to introduce a whole new movement when the leader hasn't re-established himself first. And I'm not talking about Anasa, I'm talking about the newer faces like Den, John Depp, Rab, and the rest. Talented dudes, no doubt, but the streets didn't know them yet. There was even a female artist in the mix. I can't even remember her name right now. He was trying to recreate Dipset energy from scratch, but the timing was off. His lyrical credibility was still intact, but he'd been absent from the marketplace for 4 years. That matters. I told him, we gotta warm the streets back up. What do they recognize? Juelz Santana. You didn't see Jim Jones fully pushing Bird Gang until after Ballin had him moving like a freight train. He built momentum first. And yeah, that situation eventually fell apart because, respectfully, the standout talents were Max B and Stack Bundles. Stack passed, and Max was the real creative force in Bird Gang. That's just keeping it real. Yeah, Bird Gang, that's what it was. Now, hold up, before I even get to the main story, I've got to lay the groundwork so it all makes sense, because I've got footage too, Max applying that same pressure to Jim Jones later. So boom, here's what really happened. Max B had a serious issue with Jim. I did the very first interview with him on the come-up, and that's where the blow me a dub moment came from. I filmed that. That was the first time he publicly let the world know something was off. But over time, as me and Max built a relationship, I started understanding the deeper problem. It wasn't just ego, it was legal trouble. Max was jammed up, and Jim didn't fully bail him out. A woman stepped in, put the bread, even put up property to get him home. That changes things. From Max's perspective, he felt like he wasn't being properly supported. He felt used. And let's be clear, he was writing behind the scenes, Ballin', among other records. That pen mattered. Now, I'm sure he brought this to Jim at some point, but when those conversations get brushed aside repeatedly, resentment builds. Meanwhile, Max had a major case looming. He needed money for lawyers, he needed momentum, and he felt like he wasn't allowed to move freely as Max B. So he made a choice. Sometimes in life you have to choose yourself, not street loyalty. Don't twist it. This is business, music business. Are you supposed to stay locked into a bad contract forever just because somebody put you on, even if you're not really getting paid like you should? Yeah, they introduced you to the world, but they're profiting too. This is business. Now, the streets, that's different. That comes with its own code, morals, principles, consequences. And we're not talking about snitching or shaving time off a sentence. We're talking about music and money. Max B put in real work with Jim Jones. Ballin', We Fly High, Era Records, hooks, concepts, writing behind the curtain. He helped generate serious revenue, but he didn't feel like he was allowed to fully shine. And this goes back to what I said before. Look at 50 Cent. When he blew up, he circled back and stamped G-Unit. Whether they helped him on Get Rich or Die Tryin' or not is irrelevant. The next move was a G-Unit album. Young Buck had a run. Lloyd Banks had a run. Tony Yayo had a run. That's stamping your team. Jim didn't really do that for Max. He featured him, let him write, let him contribute, but he didn't push the button and let him soar solo. So Max made a decision. He chose himself, self-preservation. He went against the grain, and it shook the mixtape circuit. He couldn't drop an official album because of paperwork, couldn't sign elsewhere because he was tied up, but creatively, he exploded. And in doing that, he punished Jim for holding him back. Once he crossed that line publicly, though, there was no turning back. And yeah, Max went personal. He spoke on Jim's wife and crossed lines that once crossed can't really be uncrossed. But understand this, in Max's mind, his real issue was Jim Jones, not random affiliates. Jim, because of feeling held back, because of broken promises. And listen, you don't break promises to somebody who came in with nothing and helped you build something. That hits different. So when Max would go off on those rants, venting in interviews, a lot of that footage, I filmed it. At the same time, I'm working with Juelz too, but I'm media, neutral. So me and Juelz would actually talk about it. I told him straight up, bro, you having a problem with me. His issue is Jim. And Juelz already knew that. That's why he could laugh some of it off. I even checked Max about certain clips. I said, yo, bro. And he admitted, nah, I was tripping. He'd been drinking. And when you affiliated with Jim, sometimes you catch strays. But he made it clear, no personal issue with Juelz. So when they finally ran into each other at that mixtape spot while Max was dropping tapes, the energy wasn't what people think. Max was dolo. He usually moves with a squad. Juelz had Skull Gang deep with him. Timing matters, but Max handled it smart. Man to man, that wasn't about you. Juelz flexed a little, grabbed some CDs, maybe $20 worth, which is nothing when you're pressing them for 50 cents a piece. It was more symbolic than anything. No real pressure. Calm exchange. Max knew he got caught without his team. But let me tell you something. I've been around when one of Jim's guys got caught slipping, and I got that footage too. Anybody can get caught. Anybody can get washed in the wrong moment, especially in that 2007-2009 era when tensions were high. So that's really what happened. And for the ones who swear Cam and Juelz didn't have issues behind the scenes, listen, just because it wasn't public yet doesn't mean it wasn't real.
It's January, right? When was the car show?
That was back in
June?
Yeah.
So it's going on about 8, 9 months, right? We've been out the contract. What's going on? Who's holding them up now? You understand what I'm saying? Hawaiian, like 100 Hawaiian, go to the studio, he had Hawaiian, like 100 Hawaiian punches already pre-mixed with this stuff in it. You know what I'm saying? So I was kind of like, stopped speaking to him. Like, yo, we already smoked, man. We don't need to be on Robitussin. I called his mother about it. I called his closest friends about it. They knew about it. They was like, the Cam is not that bad. It wasn't like he's overdoing it. And I'm like, yo, that's like saying he just smoked.
Yeah, Cameron and Juelz had tension. That's not rumor, that was real. And this connects back to what I said earlier about why I slowly distanced myself from Juelz. Around that time, I started noticing patterns. He was always drinking Hawaiian punch, heavy, and after he'd sip it, he'd be smacking his teeth, moving different. I'm like, hold up, what's in that bottle? It wasn't just juice, it was lean, activist. That syrup era was in full effect, and I'm watching him like, yo, this is getting wild. He'd argue over random stuff that didn't even make sense. I'm not gonna get too deep into every detail, but one night he handed me like $200. I gave it right back. I told him straight up, if you're paying me, it's gonna be a few thousand, not this. That wasn't disrespect, that was standards. I didn't take offense to the offer. The only thing that threw me off was another day when I didn't have cash on me. I was in Jersey and told him, yo, I gotta run home and grab bread. Back then, I was moving dumb. 25, 26 years old, keeping cash at the crib instead of the bank. Rookie move. I had moved just outside the city at that point, so it wasn't a quick hop. And the next morning, I had a meeting at Universal, so I needed money for tolls, parking, you know how that goes. I liked keeping at least $500 to $1,000 on me just in case. So he's like, all right, pull up, let's shoot these videos. And that's where the night kept unfolding. Yeah, so he's like, I'll give you a couple hundred for that. And I'm like, bet. At that time, I was non-stop, grinding every day, trying to prove myself to the world, stacking content, making moves, no breaks. So the next morning, I got a meeting in a few hours at Universal. I figured, let me shower quick, grab a couple hundred for the shoot, handle business, and then he hits me with this. Yo, I just bought a couple pounds of green. My brother's gonna swing through with some cash. I don't have anything on me. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I've got a meeting at Universal. This is important. He's calm. Yo, my brother's coming soon. So I wait. And what happens? I miss the meeting, straight up. I'm thinking, all right, just go home, regroup. I rush back, trying to cover for parking, tolls, cash, thinking I can still make it. But he'd already told me to wait for his brother. At that point, I realized this guy's unpredictable, out of his mind sometimes. He'd refuse to work on certain things, stubbornly sticking with Skull Gang and ignoring his own material. I'm telling him we can do both, Skull Gang and Juelz Santana. But nah, his focus was locked on Skull Gang. And you already know, it didn't work. It failed. Plain and simple. And here's why. Alright, so here's the thing. People weren't familiar with Skull Gang yet. They wanted Juelz Santana. That's what the streets recognized. I even suggested a play. Drop a classic Juelz track first, then ease him into a Skull Gang joint. Soft introduction, let the audience ride into the new material. He shot it down. I'm like, all right, cool. And that's the reality of stuff like this. Sometimes you just can't win. That's why I started distancing myself. After missing that Universal meeting, it hit me. He straight up didn't care. And when people show you they don't care, you gotta step back. I wasn't gone forever, just a week or so. Then one of the Skull Gang guys I was tight with in Harlem calls. Yo, why you been MIA with Juelz? I kept it real with him, told him I missed the meeting and needed to cool off for a bit. Meanwhile, Juelz is listening in on the phone like high school drama. I'm thinking, man, seriously? This is high school? We start yelling at each other, and out of nowhere, DJ Khaled calls, trying to mediate. I'm like, bro, it's not a huge issue, it's just messy energy. I was tight with everybody, Anasa, Rap, the whole crew. I could see why GGL might be worried. I was running with a lot of other artists at the time. It was a complicated web for real. Alright, so here's how it went down. I think Khaled was around that time, it might have been Kood, but basically there was a birthday event happening. Juelz was gonna show and he didn't want any drama because I was filming. I told him straight up, bro, it's not that serious. I'm cool with everybody here. And that's really where me and Juelz stopped collaborating. Fast forward a bit, in 2016, if you remember, he dropped Up in the Studio, Blown Part 1 and Part 2, and even put me on the intro. I took that as a positive sign. I had actually reached out to him before that, like, yo bro, I can help if you want to run this again. I was hoping to see a full Juelz comeback, but he never got back to me. No call, no reply, just dropped the project independently. That told me he wasn't fully focused, and honestly, you could see it in the output. A few tracks, then Love and Hip Hop, then a year later the whole TSA situation. Maybe now, after stepping away, Juelz will dial in, but back then, he was clearly still under influence, missing teeth, carrying demons he needed to handle. I'm not dissing him, I like Juelz, I just see the work he had left to do. And yeah, Anasa is right about the situation, but this wasn't a press stunt, it was deeper than that. It was about respect, timing, and personal growth. Alright, so here's the perspective. Max B and Juelz were both dealing with similar energy at that time, but the sources of stress were different. Max's issue was Jim Jones, Juelz, Cameron. That's the lens you've got to view it through. Max could relate to the frustration, but he wasn't about to step in or make it his business. He kept his distance. Juelz, on the other hand, even responded to Cameron around that period, trying to navigate the situation the best he knew how. And look, me and Cam were tight for 5 years, so for Juelz to frame things as I stopped dealing with him 'cause of lean is like a kid saying I'm done with Wayne 'cause he sips lean. You feel me? It was a surface explanation, a way to save face, maintain character. Meanwhile, let's be clear, I wasn't addicted. I sipped occasionally. Juelz, strong habit. Even when he got caught in that TSA incident with pills, it was clear he still had a problem, and he needs to work through that, and I believe he will. He's got a beautiful family now, a real life to focus on, but shout out to Anasa. He was right about the story. There's just layers, more context you don't always see. And for me, it's cool to add to the picture, because people keep hitting me up asking about it anyway. Alright, listen, this isn't some hidden secret. Most of what went down is public knowledge, but people just can't connect the dots because they weren't there. There's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. Every dot you can see is out there, except the part I shared about him dealing with personal problems. That's private, and I never held any ill will toward him. I was just a little disappointed because I really wanted to see him make a comeback back in 08, 09, but he had demons he needed to work through. Shout out to Anasa. Shout out to everyone involved. But I gotta ask you guys, what do you think of all this? Drop your thoughts below. Damn.
He's still around to us, okay?
Jordan love it. He love working with me.
Yo, Max, please. Man, can you point at him when you say London?
I did.
Don't point at yourself. I want him to point at you.
You always get money. You always get money.
Damn. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He got the
ready?
only pass.
Ready, go.
If Jim come through here, that's the treatment.
You know what I'm saying?
Juelz come through here, that's the treatment.
Nigga said my boy couldn't come to home.
If Hell Well come through here, that's the treatment. Hell no. If them other niggas come through here, I'm not even saying their name. Cause I don't want to get them wavy.
Nigga said,
Them niggas is assed out. It's that simple. Why they hate a nigga style? Then you got the scene with the coppers running.
Yep.
Real video, I always do it for you, don't I? Don't I? Don't I?
South London.
You got me on this, Joe. You got me on this?
Oh,
Why they hate a nigga style?